Hi, this is Daniel Ritchie, and I'm going to be talking about some artwork we've done in Howler, and we're just going to go ahead and dive into some concepts and get started with an actual painting. So let's look at a progression that we've done here. This is starting out with a far background. This was created with not Puppy Ray, but rather the 3D tool and a height map. We added some brushwork in the foreground, in the middle foreground, and some clouds using just the smeary oil tool, and we proceeded to use some foliage in the near foreground, or the middle near foreground, and some additional paint strokes. We continued to build up layers until we came up with, again, a final product. So this is basically showing the progression of some artwork done in Howler using available tools such as foliage painting and the 3D designer, and some basic knowledge of how natural media painting works. We're using translucent layers, for example, just like you would get with watercolors, or even acrylics and oils are often translucent. In the real world with painting, you almost never paint with opaque paint, except for maybe gouaches, and even then, they're not fully opaque. So if you're trying to do artwork that is similar to traditional media, then you're just going to want to come to grips with using translucent layers and translucent glazing, which is something that's done very easily in Howler. That's basically our default layer mode, is the multiply mode, which is very similar to glazing techniques used in traditional media. This is very convenient. All right, so let's get started with the basics. I'm going to start Howler, and we'll go back to our background, and we're going to start with something like this, created with the 3D designer. And Philip's done a ton of these, so we're not going to go into high detail. I'm going to start with the background color. In fact, I'll just go ahead and actually, let's start with the gradient tool. I'm going to pick circulate gradient, start right in the middle will be fine. I'm going to invert that. I'm going to render plasma noise, and I'm going to select difference as the mode there. I might make the scale larger and click until I get basically what I'm looking for. Hit OK. And what we have here is it's got kind of a canyon around it, but there's going to be this high point right in the middle, and that's what we were going for. Might actually fade this out some so we maintain that light spot we created for the gradient. I'll fade it about halfway, and we'll use that. Hit OK. I might expand dynamic range a little bit to use the full light and dark range available. And I'm going to go into the curve editor. Just like what you're seeing, this line going straight up, that's exactly, when we go into 3D designer, that's exactly what the slope is going to look like. It's going to be just kind of a straight, uninteresting line. So we want to take this and make a sort of a more interesting curve out of it. That'll give us a more of a mountainous with high peaks. Just like what you see there, it's going to be a lot like what you see in 3D Designer. So I'll go start there, 3D Designer, and I'm going to rotate the pitch so we can see a little better idea of what we're looking at. I'm going to make it a little bit higher. We don't want to get ridiculous with the height because mountains just don't look like that in the real world. We're going to be realistic about this and keep it about there. No more than that. That's probably too much already. I might change the pre-filter up a little bit so it's smoother. I can change it down later. I'm going to give it erosion. I don't like to use a lot. Philip uses a lot of erosion. I don't like to use it too much. Just a bit, and a bit of sediment. Alright, next step is to create a texture. This creates a texture in the swap image. I like to give it more smoothing and more intensity. Move the snow down so we can see it. Not that much. I'm going to move the grass up a bit so we can see it. I'm going to change the grass color so it's not so green. That default is way too green for some reason. And make it about like that. I'm going to use slightly less dark gray. And that'll be fine. Alright, one important thing to know here is we're not trying to create something that looks like a 3D render. We want to create something that looks like artwork. And the main trick here is going to be just finding what looks artistic and working with it. Basically, we want to use colors and lights, especially the colors. That will really bring out the detail in this. So let me go ahead and take the altitude most of the way down, the zenith all the way out, the light range all the way up, or at least until it's not completely blown out. I like to work with the sun on the left side, so I'll rotate that to that side, and these can be adjusted as needed. We need a little bit of fill light. I'm going to give it some color. Like I said, we want to have a lot of color in this. I like to use complementary colors, so basically, if you look at a color wheel like we have here, the complementary colors would be opposite sides of the color wheel. So basically yellow and blue, or red and kind of bluish green, or purple and green, or yellow and purple, something to that effect. I'm going to make the sun a little bit more orange. We want to get these really intense colors, and we want to put them basically on opposite sides of each other so that we really start to see the detail in here. Also going to create a background color. When we're doing artwork, it's good to know that colors that are bright or intense seem to come to the foreground, and colors that are cool or subdued, such as grayscales, tend to go into the background. And since this is the far background, we want to use very subdued colors. We don't want bright blue, even though our brain knows the sky is blue. We're going to make it almost gray, and your brain's going to tell you the sky is blue even then. So I'll click OK. I'm going to give this a little bit of fog. Not too much, we don't want to blow it out. And finally, I'm going to adjust these until we get basically what we want out of it. Alright, so one more thing I want to do is make the sediment snow colored. I believe would be nice. That'll give us all these nice patches of snow. Alright, I got to move this up because we don't want this right in the middle of our scenery. That's boring. We want it up towards the top or maybe towards the bottom. It's the rule of thirds, basically. Not right in the middle. That would be the rule of half, and that looks awful. So I'm going to move this up to a third of the way. I'll have to rotate the pitch so we can see it again appropriately. And that's still too tall. Let's get this down a bit. Alright, so that's good enough for now. Needs to be a bit brighter yet. And we also want to turn on shadows. Alright, now we're really seeing something artistic looking more than before. We can really see depth in this. We can see all these contrasting colors. All of that. So let's click one more thing. See, I might turn that pre-filter down so we get a little more detail. Turn the anti-aliasing up all the way. And I think that's about all we want to do with that. Click OK. Take a few minutes to render, or moments. Since we want this to look artistic, it's not really about applying filters and things, but we're going to apply a median filter. This will take some of the rendered edge off of it a little bit. That's under convolve and median. Not a big deal, but it gives it a little bit more artistic quality. Now let's not stop there, because we want to really extract the artistic value out of this. We're going to go into hue, saturation, and value and work with this until we get the colors we want and the saturation we want out of this. I want some of those oranges and some of those blues. So I'm going to click OK. I want it to be a little bit brighter as well. Not that bright though. That's a little awful. I'll click OK. In fact, I'll fade that out with filter fade last action until I get it just where I want it. That's fine. That's a good start. The only thing I'm going to do now is pick an airbrush, or maybe a smear tool would be better. Let's see what we got here under oils or effects maybe. Smear 50 or smear 100. Let's do that. Let's just pull this down a bit and give us a little suggestion of what our foreground scenery is going to look like. It doesn't have to be very detailed, because we're going to paint foliage and all kinds of stuff over this. So there we go. That's the start of our painting.